Good morning. Normally I get to write on this little worship blog, but I figured got a chance to go out to the hill country for the Labor Day weekend of my parents and who live here by this river here, the Blanco River. And just wanted to share a story. I was actually reading in the Reader's Digest, so I haven't read one of these in a while. But it's about a little 4-year-old girl named Nora, who I think can teach us a lot. So let me just read a little bit. So story goes, she's with her mom at a grocery store, and she encounters an elderly man at the grocery store. So she picks up and she says, "Hi, old person. It's my birthday today." The man was elderly, stone-faced, and furrow-browed. However, before I could shush her, this is a mom, from calling him an old person or ask the earth to swallow me whole, he stopped and turned to her. If he was troubled by my no-filter child, he didn't show it. His expression softened as he replied, "Well, hello, little lady. And how old are you today?" They chatted for a few minutes. He wished her a happy birthday, and we went our separate ways. A few minutes later, she turned to me and asked, "Can I take my picture with that old man for my birthday?" It was the cutest thing ever, and although I wasn't sure if he'd oblige, I told her we'd certainly ask. We found the man a couple aisles over, and I approached him. "Excuse me, sir. This is Nora, and she'd like to know if you'd take a photo with her for her birthday." His expression morphed from confused to stunned to delighted. He took a step back, steadied himself on his shopping cart, and placed his free hand on his chest. "A photo with me?" he asked. "Yes, sir, for my birthday," Nora pleaded. And so he did. I pulled out my iPhone and they posed together. She placed her soft hand on top of his soft hand. He wordlessly stared at her with twinkling eyes as she kept his hand in hers and studied his skinny veins and weathered knuckles. She kissed the top of his hand and then placed it on her cheek. He beamed. I asked his name and he told us to call him Dan. We were blocking other shoppers, but they didn't care. There was magic happening in the grocery store that day, and we could all feel it. Nora and Mr. Dan sure didn't notice. They were chatting away like long-lost friends. After a few minutes, I thanked Mr. Dan for spending a bit of his day with us. He teared up and said, "No, thank you. This has been the best day I've had in a long time." He turned to my daughter. "You've made me so happy, Miss Nora." They hugged and we walked away. Nora watched him until he was out of view. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't a weepy mess after their encounter. I was blown away by this meeting and thought maybe some of the readers on my Facebook page might enjoy hearing about it. I posted the story and a photo of the two of them. Later that night, I received a private message from a local reader who recognized Mr. Dan. His wife, Mary, had passed away 6 months earlier, and he had been lonely since his beloved had gone. The reader wanted to let me know that she was certain his heart was touched by my little girl, that he needed that connection and likely would never forget it. Just pause there for a second. I was pretty blown away by that story. I think through this four-year-old little girl, we have a picture of what it is to really love somebody. I was thinking about Jesus said, it really all comes down to what is the greatest commandment. When he was asked, "Tell us of all the laws, what are we supposed to be about as people, as Christians?" He said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think little Nora gives us an amazing illustration of what it means to love our neighbor as ourself. And I think one of the beautiful things about the church is it's called the family of God. And even in Dan's situation, maybe his biological family wasn't there and he was lonely. And yet I just see a picture of what can happen in the body of Christ as we love each other well, as we think about, God, who are the people around me that are lonely, that are disconnected, that are cut off? And how can we be like little Nora and love those people well? And I just want to read this one other little quote that I love about the way Nora thought, and it's a good way for us to think. Later on it says, "Nora asks about Mr. Dan every day. She worries about him. She wonders if he's lonely, or if he's cold, or has cheese for his sandwiches. She wants him to be okay. She wants him to feel loved." I love that. It's like how many times we can get caught up in our own selfish desires, our own kind of world, and we fail to really think about and empathize with how other people are doing around us, the people that God has placed us around. And little Nora had this heart of compassion. I think it's the way that Jesus, when he walked around, often you would hear it'd say that he felt compassion for the people he was walking around. It's like he could step inside of their shoes, into their world, and feel like what would it feel like, and what are the emotions they're feeling. And Nora, I think, embodies that spirit, and it's a great challenge for us as believers on that's how we're supposed to live too. And one little final thought from the Psalms. This is what it says about the heart of our God in Psalm 68 and part of verse 5 and 6. It says, a father of the fatherless and a judge for the widows is God in his holy habitation. And I love this in verse 6. It says, God makes a home for the lonely. That's God's heart. God's heart is he looks out and he sees every single person. Nobody escapes his notice. And his desire is actually through his body, the body of Christ, is to show the world that this is the heart of our God, that even if you feel cut off like an orphan or a widow or a widower, or you're just lonely, or you're a single mom, or that God has a heart for you. And he wants to give a home to the lonely. And I think that's kind of what happened with Dan that day in that story, is all of a sudden Dan, it goes on that weekly they would still hang out and check in. It's like Dan all of a sudden had a home now. And that's what can happen in the family of God. We can give each other a home that God provides. So anyway, just want to share that thought with you. God bless you. Hope you have a great day.